Hello, stampers and fellow paper crafters. It's Cindy Lynn with My Inky Fingers. Thank you so much for visiting me today on my YouTube channel and blog. For today's Ways to Use It Wednesday, if you watch some of my other Ways to Use It Wednesday, you probably noticed the Pigment Sprinkle Alcohol inks have completely taken over. If you haven't seen that video, I will put it right up here for you so you can go and see what the Pigment Sprinkle Alcohol concoction is all about. I've been named the mad scientist, so I think that's kind of funny, but I did find a really cool concoction. Nevertheless, for today's Ways to Use It Wednesday, if you're like me, you have tons of backgrounds because you've been playing around with your Pigment Sprinkle Alcohol inks. So we're going to take one of those backgrounds and we're going to make a really cool card. And be sure to stick around to the end of the video because I've got some really fun bloopers for you guys. I don't know, do you like those? I like watching bloopers, so you guys are going to have to let me know in the comments below if you like them or not. Now, full transparency. I have had a crazy couple of days, and this card I actually made a couple of weeks ago. I never put the camera on without making a card, so I've edited it, and I was an absolute mess on this card. I mean, the ruler should be a dead giveaway. I've got the ruler out, so there must be measuring involved. So that's a dead giveaway that this was just almost a disaster from the beginning. I pulled out some scratch paper and I marked that there at 3 by 4 1/4. I'm going to use the gold foil cardstock, and I didn't want to mess this up. And I've got my alcohol ink background, right? My pigment sprinkle alcohol ink background. And I don't want to mess up the cutting of that either. So I cut out that background and I knew the size, and then I played with this and I went back and forth and I trimmed it a million times, and it ends up that if your background is 3 by 4 1/4, your strips will be 3 by 5/8. Now, here's how bad I am with measuring. 5/8 to me is a 1/2 inch and 2 ticks. But I can't tell you guys it's a 1/2 inch and 2 ticks. So I have this little graph that Todd drew out for me, and it looks like a ruler, and it's got all these little thingies on it, and he's marked them 3/8, 5/8, 7/8, yada yada yada. It's quite hilarious. Anyhow, what I did there is I put some temporary adhesive on the back of the pigment sprinkle background because I wanted to make sure I got perfect placement. Now, I only did this because I pre-cut the gold at the 3 by 4 1/4. If you cut it a little bit bigger, you're going to have much more wiggle room and you won't have to go through this process. I was watching a really good movie when I made this, and I wasn't thinking this through. So if you cut your background, the gold, a little bigger, you can just eyeball this and you won't have to go through all of this extra work that I did. So learn from my mistake and save yourself some time. So I'm going to play around with my placement and pull out my sentiment. And I did emboss one part of this background because it's on that craft plastic, right? And I wanted to make sure that I was going to be able to emboss this without ruining it and just kind of get a little bit of a technique down. There is a little finesse to it. You've got to, I'll go over that actually when we get to there. But I pulled out some vellum and I'm using a foam dauber and I'm pouncing it up and down on the vellum. I don't want a smooth effect. And honestly, the die cut is so small that you can't even really tell that I wanted a kind of a marble effect. And of course, I'm going to pull out my gold splatter and I'm just going to add some texture to that, and then I'm going to set it aside to dry. And here's where I'm going to emboss this here now. I do have a Stamparatus, and you guys have probably seen me do this before, but if you haven't, I'm going to explain what I'm doing. I want to position this, and I didn't take my acetate off my lid, but I want to position this, and then I want to put my acetate in there with my graph paper printed on it, and I want to stamp that in black on the acetate. And then I'm going to pull up the card. I'm going to make sure that acetate is right tight in the corner as well so that I can place it back in the same spot. But this allows me to kind of eyeball and look at that and make sure that my sentiment is 100% straight, because I can't make a mistake on this, right? This is a background that I've created that I do not want to have to go and redo and get all the way back to this point here. So I'm going to use my Embossing Buddy to de-staticify that paper, the craft plastic, and then I'm going to stamp it with the Versamark, and I'm going to kind of tilt it and look, and I don't think I got a really great impression the first time, so I'm going to do it again, and then I'm going to bring the gold. Now, here's the thing, guys, when you're embossing on craft plastic, this is your medium that you're using, or your poster board. Poster board's not going to be as difficult, but you don't want to keep your heat gun in the same spot for too long. It will melt your craft plastic. And keep in mind that anything that you want to put this on, you're going to want to adhere it with a very, very strong bond adhesive. I chose to adhere this onto a piece of foam, fun foam. And I used the liquid glue, and then you'll see later, I just wanted to help flatten it. And I did put the block on that as soon as I thought the embossing powder was dry. Now for that dye there, I put it in that wax paper because I had splattered it with the gold, and I found that sometimes the gold transfers to my plates in my Big Shot there. So just put it in some wax paper and you won't get the transfer. So I'm just going to kind of place this around here, and I've got some of the wax paper still in behind that vellum. I'm like, why is this so dark? Now this mat, I did end up embossing this with the subtle embossing folder, and this card, this was I think this was an hour and 45-minute video. So I did so much editing and cutting that somehow I lost where I embossed that. So it's gone. So there's the fun foam I had pulled out. And I did a really good job embossing that craft plastic, or heat embossing it, right? So it's not super wilted. So this fun foam will really help give it its form and position, or I guess not really position, just its form, and help it not look like it's got a little bit of warping on it. So I'm going to adhere that down to that mat, and that mat is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. Do you hear me struggle with measurements? I'm so bad with measurements. Anyhow, I'm going to use my T-square ruler because I want to make sure that that's nice and straight on there, because there's not going to be a lot going on in the background. The eye is going to draw right to that pigment sprinkle alcohol ink background with the gold. So I want to make sure it is very straight, or it's going to be noticeable. And then I'm going to put all of my liquid adhesive on the mat and then get that positioned on the card. And I did use the Thick Whisper White, and that's an A2 size top folding card. And then I pulled out the gold glitter enamel dots, and bend your acetate with these a little bit and get your pick in behind it. You'll find if you bend your acetate, they come off a lot easier. I've had so many people ask me about that, especially on the paper pumpkin boards, because I don't know that you guys are used to getting these embellishments on the acetate. So just bend your acetate. So I'm just going to place those around there, and I can't believe that I'm only 8 minutes in and this card's almost done, because this card took me so long. Now I'm just thinking about how I want to adhere that vellum. So I thought about adding some gold twine, and I just wasn't feeling that. I like the simplicity and how clean and simple this card is. So I went to put those away and thought, no, I'm going to put one more of these enamel dots. Well, I did pull out those, but I went with the enamel dots because those, I wasn't feeling those gold ones at all. They weren't matching. So I'm going to play with a few here, and I'm looking back and forth. And that's the key, really, is to just pull out a bunch of different embellishments and kind of play with them and look around. And I'm looking at that, and the gold just, it wasn't doing it for me. So I'm going to put all those away, and I'm going to go back to basics, and I'm just going to use one of the gold enamel dots. So I'm going to pull it there off of the acetate, and I'm just going to stick it just where the petals meet the stem, and that's where I'm going to put that liquid adhesive. So adhering your vellum, if you can find a way to embellish the vellum, that is a perfect way to glue it down to your card. So I hope you enjoyed seeing how to use your backgrounds in another card. This video almost didn't happen today, hence why I look so disheveled. I am so ridiculously behind. But you know what? A little messy hair and no makeup is definitely not going to stop this girl from getting you guys your ways to use it Wednesday. So do you already have a stash of pigment sprinkle alcohol ink backgrounds? Let me know in the comments below if this is giving you an idea for your stash. Or are you one of those that are like, what the heck, I gotta go look at that? Or maybe you already went and watched that video and came back to finish this video. Let me know in the comments below if you're rushing off to make some really cool backgrounds with your new recipe for pigment sprinkle alcohol inks. I love hearing from you guys, and I love seeing the pictures of your cards as well. It truly inspires me to see your cards and your creations after watching one of my videos. So until you come and say hi and find me online and I see you again, take care and happy stamping. Hello, stampers and fellow Hello, stampers and fellow So until you come find me, cause we're stalkers. So until you come and find me, and what we're going to do is until you come say hi to me and you find me, until you